The stars twinkled silently in the vast darkness as Olivia Harper checked the systems of her small exploration vessel. She was 2 months into her mission to map the outer reaches of the Andromeda sector, a job that was as lonely as it was important. Olivia brushed her blonde hair from her face and sighed. The endless emptiness of space sometimes made her miss. A sudden alarm jolted her from her thoughts. Red warning lights flashed across her control panel. A massive energy signature had appeared seemingly out of nowhere on her scanners. Olivia sat up straight, her heart beating rapidly. This was not a natural phenomenon. The ship shuddered as something caught it in what felt like a tractor beam. Olivia tried the emergency thrusters, but nothing happened. Her vessel was being pulled toward the source of the energy signature, a massive ship that had somehow remained cloaked until now. As her small craft was drawn into what appeared to be a docking bay, Olivia quickly backed up, her mission data, and sent an emergency beacon toward Earth. It would take days to reach human space, but at least they would know something had happened to her. The docking bay was enormous, filled with strange vessels unlike anything in human records. The architecture was smooth and curved with an iridescent purple sheen to every surface. Olivia grabbed her emergency kit and translator device. Before the outer door of her ship opened, she was met by 3 tall humanoid figures with lavender skin and silvery eyes. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with slender builds and wore what appeared to be ceremonial robes. Their most striking feature was their eyes, large and almond-shaped with no visible pupils, just swirling silver that seemed to capture and reflect light. "We welcome you, human." One of them spoke the word, somehow translated directly into her mind. "We are the Zindari. We have been observing your species for some time." Olivia steadied herself, trying to appear calm and diplomatic. "Despite her racing heart, I am Captain Olivia Harper of the Earth Exploration Force. May I ask why you have brought me aboard your vessel?" The tallest of the aliens stepped forward, her movements graceful and fluid. "I am High Matriarch Celine of the Zindari Collective. We apologize for the abrupt nature of this meeting, but we have urgent matters to discuss with your species. You are the first human to venture this far into the sector, which presented us with an opportunity." Olivia was escorted through corridors that seemed to shift and change as they walked. The walls pulsed with a soft blue light that followed their movements. Other Zindari they passed were all female, at least as far as Olivia could tell. They regarded her with open curiosity, some reaching out as if to touch her before pulling back. The High Matriarch led her to a circular chamber where several Zindari sat in a semicircle. They wore more elaborate robes and jewelry that seemed to float above their skin rather than rest upon it. Captain Harper, the High Matriarch, addressed her formally. "We have brought you here because your species faces a threat you are not yet aware of. The Krell Empire has taken notice of humanity." Olivia frowned. "Who are the Krell?" A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing a massive swarm of insect-like creatures with technology that appeared both organic and mechanical. "The Krell are a collective consciousness, driven by a single goal: expansion," the matriarch explained. "They consume all resources of a planet before moving to the next. They have dominated 12 solar systems in the past century alone. Their technology is advanced, their numbers vast, and they have recently detected your transmissions from Earth." Olivia felt a chill run through her. "Why are you telling me this? Why not contact Earth directly?" Another Zindari rose, her robes shimmering as she moved. "We have protocols about interfacing with developing species. The Zindari do not interfere with natural evolution. However, the Krell threat has forced our hand. Your species shows remarkable potential, unlike any we have encountered in millennia." The High Matriarch nodded. "The Zindari have been watching humanity for centuries. We have seen your adaptability, your resilience, your capacity for both destruction and creation. Most species require millions of years to achieve what humanity has in mere thousands. This makes you unique and valuable. Olivia questioned. The matriarch approached Olivia, studying her with those strange silver eyes. "The Zindari are ancient, but we have limitations. Our physiology, while advanced in many ways, lacks certain adaptabilities. Our population grows slowly, we reproduce rarely, and our evolutionary path has reached a plateau. Another hologram appeared showing human DNA alongside what Olivia assumed was Zindari genetic code. Your species continues to evolve. Rapidly, said a Zindari wearing what appeared to be scientific insignia. You adapt to new environments. Within generations, not millennia. Your minds form new neural pathways throughout your lives, allowing for continuous learning and adaptation. Even your social structures evolve and adapt to new challenges. Olivia began to understand where this was going. You need our help against these Krell. The High Matriarch made a gesture that Olivia interpreted as affirmation. The Krell have never encountered humans. Their strategies are based on predictable responses from logical species. They have never faced a species that can imagine scenarios that have not yet occurred, that can plan for theoretical futures humanity thinks in ways the Krell cannot comprehend. This combination of rapid adaptation, creativity, and unpredictability makes you formidable. Despite your physical limitations, added another council member. So what exactly do you want from me, from humanity? Olivia asked, an alliance. The matriarch stated simply, we offer technology, knowledge, and protection. The Zindari fleet is powerful but small. We have advanced medical science energy production capabilities and faster than light travel beyond what Earth has developed. But we need human unpredictability, human creativity. We believe that together our species could resist the Krell, where separately we would both fall. Olivia considered the proposal. It was far beyond her authority to negotiate such an arrangement. I would need to return to Earth to present this to our leaders. The matriarch nodded. We expected as much. We will escort your vessel back to your home system, but we must act quickly. The Krell scout ships will reach your outer planets within 6 of your months, as Olivia prepared to return to her ship. The High Matriarch approached her privately. Captain Harper, there is another matter we have not discussed with the Council. Your genetic structure shows compatibility with Zindari biology, unprecedented in our encounters with other species. Olivia was taken aback. What does that mean exactly? The matriarch's silver eyes seemed to swirl more rapidly. Our species has faced a reproductive decline for millennia. We believe that genetic exchange with humans could revitalize our population while also enhancing human capabilities. We do not suggest this lightly. It has never been attempted genetic exchange. Olivia repeated carefully. You mean hybridization? The matriarch confirmed. Our scientists believe it possible, though it would require further study. This would be a separate proposal from the military alliance, against the Krell but potentially of equal importance for both our species. Long-term survival, Olivia tried to maintain her diplomatic composure. Despite the shocking suggestion, that would be an even more complex discussion for Earth leadership. Of course, the matriarch agreed, but consider that such a union would bind our species in ways that would ensure mutual protection and advancement. Both Zindari and humans could evolve in new directions together. When Olivia finally returned to her ship, her mind was racing with implications. Her small exploration vessel was now being escorted by a massive Zindari ship heading toward Earth. She had recordings of their meetings and technological specifications the Zindari had provided as evidence of their good faith. As Earth came into view weeks later, Olivia knew that humanity stood at a crossroads. The arrival of the Zindari ship caused immediate global reaction. Military vessels scrambled, defensive systems activated, but the Zindari made no aggressive moves. Olivia transmitted her report ahead of her landing. Earth authorities were already assembling an emergency council when her ship touched down. She was immediately escorted to a secure facility where government and military leaders waited. The tall, elegant form of High Matriarch Celine followed behind Olivia as they entered the council chamber. The human officials fell silent at the sight of the alien leader. Olivia stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I present High Matriarch Celine of the Zindari Collective. She has come with a warning and an offer that will change the course of human history. The matriarch surveyed the room, her silver eyes reflecting the lights. People of Earth, we come not as conquerors, but as potential allies. The stars have many wonders, but also many dangers. It is time for your species to join the wider galactic community. And just in time for us all to face a threat that neither of us can defeat alone. 3 months after the arrival of the Zindari, Earth was transformed. The sleek purple ships of their new allies hovered above major cities as human and alien scientists worked together to prepare for the coming threat. Military leaders from both species developed joint strategies while diplomats hammered out the details of their alliance. Amy Wilson stood in the newly constructed Zindari embassy in Geneva. Her dark skin contrasted with the white diplomatic uniform she wore as Earth's chief ambassador to the alien visitors. She watched the Zindari High Council members glide across the room, their movements always so graceful. It seemed they barely touched the ground. High Matriarch Celine approached Amy, her silver eyes swirling with what the human had come to recognize as excitement. The defense grid is ahead of schedule. Ambassador Wilson, your engineers have adapted our designs with remarkable efficiency. Amy nodded. The combination of Zindari energy technology and human manufacturing techniques is working well, but there are still concerns about coverage for the southern hemisphere. The matriarch made a flowing gesture with her 6-fingered hand. We have allocated 3 additional shield generators for your southern continents. They will arrive with the next transport. She paused, studying Amy's expression. You remain troubled. There are still those who question the alliance. Amy admitted. Some fear we are sacrificing too much autonomy. Others worry about cultural contamination, and the genetic exchange program has caused significant debate. The genetic program had been the most controversial aspect of the alliance. Though voluntary, hundreds of human women had already entered the program working with Zindari scientists to explore the possibility of creating hybrid offspring. The initial results showed promise but had also triggered religious and ethical debates. Worldwide, the matriarch's expression softened. We understand the concerns. Your species values independence, as much as ours values tradition. But the Krell threat grows each day. Their scout vessels have already been detected in your Kuiper belt. A young aide approached Amy with a tablet. She read the message, her expression growing serious. Excuse me, matriarch, but I must attend an emergency council meeting. Our deep space monitoring station has detected a large object moving at high speed toward Earth. The emergency council convened in an underground facility beneath the Swiss Alps. Military leaders from both species gathered around holographic displays showing the approaching object. General Lisa Morgan of the United Earth Defense Force pointed to the trajectory. The object is approximately 15 kilometers in diameter, moving at nearly 1/10 light speed. It's on course to impact Earth in approximately 72 hours. A Zindari commander named Lyra studied the readings. This is not Krell design. It appears to be a natural object, possibly a small asteroid or comet fragment. But its trajectory was recently altered. Something changed its course deliberately. Amy looked alarmed. How do we stop it? The Zindari scientist Vela stepped forward, her ceremonial robes replaced with practical attire for the crisis. Your traditional methods, nuclear weapons, or kinetic impactors would be insufficient given the object's mass and velocity. However, we could deploy a Zindari gravity displacement device. General Morgan frowned. Explain. The device creates a localized distortion in space-time. Vela said, it can effectively push the asteroid into a different trajectory without physical contact. However, deploying it will require a ship to approach the object closely. Automating such a precise operation would be difficult. I will lead the mission. Lyra volunteered, her silver eyes fixed on the holographic display. My ship is the fastest in our fleet. I should go too, General Morgan said firmly. This is our planet, our responsibility. The Zindari shouldn't bear all the risk. The mission was prepared with unprecedented speed. A joint human Zindari crew boarded Lyra's vessel, the Starlight Seeker. Amy watched from the command center as the sleek purple ship rose into the night sky, accelerating rapidly until it was just a fading light among the stars. For the next 48 hours, the command center maintained constant communication with the mission. The asteroid was larger than initially estimated and showed signs of unusual composition. Communication became spotty as the ship approached its target. Amy Waited with the High Matriarch, both women tense as updates became less frequent. Finally, after several hours of silence, the communications officer shouted, "They're back online." General Morgan's face appeared on the main screen, her expression grim, but determined. This was no natural object. It's artificial, a construct designed to appear as an asteroid. We found Krell technology embedded throughout the structure. This was a first strike weapon meant to impact Earth before their main fleet arrived. The High Matriarch stepped forward. "Did you deploy the gravity device?" Lyra appeared beside the human general, her usual composure slightly shaken. "We did, Matriarch, but there was a complication. The device activated a secondary system within the asteroid. It appears the Krell anticipated our technology. What happened?" Amy asked. "The object has been diverted." General Morgan reported. "It will no longer impact Earth. But the Krell technology has transmitted a signal. We believe it has alerted their main fleet to our alliance with the Zindari. They now know we have access to advanced technology." Amy turned to the Matriarch. "What does this mean for the timeline?" The Matriarch's silver eyes darkened. "They will accelerate their plans. The main invasion could come within weeks rather than months. The next 3 weeks saw frantic preparation. The Zindari brought additional ships to Earth orbit while human factories worked around the clock to produce compatible weapons and defense systems. The genetic exchange program was temporarily suspended as all resources were directed toward defense. Amy barely slept during this period, dividing her time between diplomatic coordination and visiting construction sites around the world. The shield generators were massive, structures each covering hundreds of square miles with a network of energy projectors. She was inspecting the North American shield generator when her communication device chimed urgently. The Krell fleet had been detected crossing the orbit of Mars, nearly 1,000 ships of varying sizes moving in perfect formation. Amy rushed to the central command facility where human and Zindari leaders had gathered. The mood was tense as they watched the approaching armada. High Matriarch Selene stood calmly in the center of the room. "The shield network is operational at 87% capacity. It will have to be enough." She turned to Amy, "Ambassador, it is time for you to address your people." The global broadcast system had been established. Weeks earlier, Amy stood before the camera, her diplomatic uniform replaced with a more practical combat suit, as she addressed the combined population of Earth people of Earth. "Today we face the greatest threat in human history." She began. "The Krell armada approaches not to negotiate, not to study, but to consume our world, our resources, and ourselves. But we do not stand alone. For the first time in our history, we have allies among the stars. The Zindari have provided technology, knowledge, and ships. They stand with us now as we defend not just humanity, but all intelligent life that values freedom and self-determination. This is humanity's first interstellar war, but together with the Zindari, we will ensure it is not our last." As she finished speaking, the first wave of Krell ships entered Earth's upper atmosphere. They were insect-like in design with sharp angular features that contrasted with the smooth curves of Zindari vessels. The shield network activated, creating a shimmering blue dome over protected areas. The Krell weapons fire splashed against the shields in bursts of energy. The Zindari fleet moved to intercept, led by Lyra's Starlight Seeker. Human fighters launched from bases around the world, joining their alien allies. In formation, the battle for Earth had begun. From the command center, Amy watched alongside the High Matriarch as the first engagements were fought in the skies above. The Krell ships were numerous, but the combined tactics of human and Zindari forces proved effective. Human pilots executed maneuvers that the Krell algorithms failed to predict, while Zindari energy weapons tore through the enemy shields. "We need to target their command vessel," General Morgan said, pointing to a massive ship at the center of the Krell formation. "Our intelligence suggests they operate on a centralized control system." The High Matriarch nodded. "Lyra is already positioning the Starlight Seeker for an assault, but they will need support to penetrate the Krell defenses." Amy watched as a squadron of human fighters moved into position, escorting the larger Zindari vessel toward the Krell command ship. The shields over major cities flickered under continuous bombardment, but held. The Krell suddenly changed tactics, concentrating fire on a shield generator in East Asia. The facility exploded in a burst of energy, creating a gap in the defensive network. Krell landing craft immediately descended toward the unprotected area. We have a breach. General Morgan reported ground forces are engaging in China. Amy turned to the matriarch. Can we reposition a generator? Not in time, the Zindari leader replied, but we have another option. She gestured to a Zindari scientist who had been working quietly in the corner. The genetic program yielded preliminary results before it was suspended. We have a small group of hybrid-enhanced humans. Their physical capabilities exceed normal parameters. Amy looked shocked. You want to deploy them? They haven't been fully tested. 1 year after the first Krell attack, Earth had transformed in ways few could have imagined. The once controversial genetic exchange program had expanded rapidly as the benefits became clear. The hybrids had proven decisive in ground combat during the invasion, their enhanced strength and partial access to Zindari mental abilities, turning the tide in critical battles. Michelle Chen walked through the hybrid training facility, her clipboard in hand, as she observed the newest generation of volunteers. Their skin had a subtle lavender hue and their eyes contained swirling silver flecks that caught the light. As the lead human scientist on the program, Michelle felt both pride and concern watching them train. The hybrids moved with fluid grace, executing combat maneuvers that would be impossible for unmodified humans. Their reflexes were twice as fast as Olympic athletes, their strength nearly 3 times human baseline, but it was their mental abilities that truly set them apart. Limited telepathy. With other hybrids and Zindari enhanced sensory perception and accelerated learning, High Commander Lyra entered the observation deck, her tall, elegant form drawing immediate attention from everyone present. The Zindari officer had become a hero to both species after leading the assault on the Krell command ship. The newest cohort shows promising results, she said, her silver eyes studying the training below. The genetic integration is more stable than previous generations. Michelle nodded. The neural adaptations are particularly impressive. This group has developed telepathic abilities in half the time of the first generation, but am concerned about the accelerated development. Some are experiencing identity issues as they adjust to their new capabilities. Lyra placed a 6-fingered hand on Michelle's shoulder gently. Such transitions are never easy. But remember, these volunteers chose this path. They understood the risks and the rewards. A young aide approached them with an urgent message. Michelle read it quickly, then looked up at Lyra. The Deep Space Monitoring Network has detected Krell ships assembling at the edge of the solar system. The High Council is meeting in 1 hour. The council chamber beneath Geneva had expanded over the past year to accommodate representatives from both species. The room fell silent as Fleet Admiral Susan Baker of the United Earth Defense Force stepped forward, her weathered face grim. The Krell have assembled a force 3 times larger than their previous attack, she announced, pointing to the holographic display. Their new formation suggests they have adapted their tactics based on their earlier defeat. High Matriarch Celine studied the display carefully. They have positioned jamming vessels to disrupt our communication network and appear to have developed countermeasures against our shield technology. How long do we have, Michelle? Asked Admiral Baker, frowned. 3 days at most. They appear to be waiting for additional reinforcements. Vela, the chief Zindari scientist, activated a different holographic display. Our orbital defense network is at full capacity, but may not withstand a sustained assault of this magnitude. We need a new approach. Michelle stepped forward, hesitantly. We may have another option. The hybrid program has yielded unexpected developments in the neural interface technology. Some of our advanced subjects have demonstrated the ability to mentally connect with and, in limited cases, control Zindari technology. The room grew quiet as Michelle continued. One of our volunteers, Claire Davis, has shown unprecedented neural compatibility. She can interface directly with Zindari ship systems, without physical connection extending her consciousness into the vessels. Command network. Admiral Baker looked skeptical. How does this help us against the Krell? Michelle glanced at Lyra, who nodded encouragingly. The hybrid neural pattern creates signals. The Krell systems cannot anticipate or counter. Claire believes she could potentially interface with and disrupt Krell command systems in a similar manner. Their technology is partly organic, which makes it theoretically compatible. Absolutely not. Admiral Baker said firmly, "We are not sending a single hybrid into the heart of the Krell fleet regardless of her abilities." Lyra stepped forward. "It would not be just one. Claire would connect through our neural network, linking with all hybrids. This collective consciousness could potentially disrupt the entire Krell command structure, but it would require direct proximity to their central command vessel." The debate raged for hours before a compromise was reached. Claire would lead a small team of advanced hybrids aboard Lyra's vessel. The Starlight Seeker had been retrofitted with enhanced stealth technology that might allow it to approach the Krell command ship undetected. Meanwhile, Earth and Zindari forces would engage the Krell fleet in a conventional battle to draw attention away from the infiltration. Michelle found Claire in the meditation chamber where the hybrids practiced their mental abilities. The young woman sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed, silver light occasionally flickering beneath her eyelids. At 28, Claire had been a quantum physicist before volunteering for the program. Now she represented the most successful human Zindari genetic integration. Claire opened her eyes as Michelle entered. "Are we approved?" Michelle nodded but couldn't hide her concern. "This mission. The risks are beyond calculation." Claire finished with a small smile. "I know the odds, Michelle, but I also know what's at stake." She stood, her movements fluid and graceful. "The connection I've experienced with the Zindari consciousness, it's beautiful, but incomplete. With the other hybrids, though, it's something entirely new, something neither human nor Zindari has experienced before. We can do this. We have to." The day of the battle arrived with grim inevitability. The combined Earth and Zindari defense fleet moved into position as the massive Krell armada approached Lyra's ship with Claire, and 12 other advanced hybrids aboard slipped away, using a new phase-shifting technology that rendered it nearly invisible. Michelle watched from the command center alongside Admiral Baker and the High Matriarch. The initial engagement was brutal. Krell weapons tore through the outer defense line despite the advanced shields. Several human ships were destroyed in the first exchange, while Zindari vessels maneuvered to protect Earth cities. Status of the Starlight Seeker, Admiral Baker demanded. Maintaining stealth profile approaching Krell formation, the communications officer reported. Estimated time to target 15 minutes. Michelle felt her heart racing. The plan required Lyra to navigate through the heart of the Krell fleet to reach the command vessel. If they were detected before reaching position, the mission would fail on the main screen. The battle intensified. Krell landing craft began, descending toward Earth despite heavy fire from defense platforms. Hybrid ground forces moved to intercept, engaging in fierce combat where they landed. The communications officer suddenly straightened. "The Starlight Seeker reports they are in position. Hybrids are initiating neural interface." Michelle held her breath, watching Claire's vital signs on a secondary monitor. The young woman's neural pattern spiked dramatically as she linked with the other hybrids, their combined consciousness reaching out toward the Krell command systems. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to change. The battle continued to rage, ships exploding in silent bursts of light as ground forces fought desperately against the Krell landing parties. Then something shifted. The Krell ships nearest to the command vessel suddenly changed course, some firing on each other, others simply shutting down. Their perfect formation dissolved into chaos. "It's working," Admiral Baker said in disbelief. "The hybrid interface is disrupting their command network." The High Matriarch stepped closer to the display. "Claire is not just disrupting, she is redirecting. The hybrids are actually controlling portions of the Krell fleet." On the neural monitor, Claire's brain activity reached dangerous levels. The other hybrids showed similar patterns, their combined consciousness spreading through the organic components of Krell technology like a virus. "We need to pull them out," Michelle said urgently. "These levels of neural activity aren't sustainable. They could suffer permanent damage before anyone could respond." A massive energy surge erupted from the Krell command vessel. The shockwave rippled outward, affecting all Krell ships, which suddenly went dark. For a moment, the battlefield fell silent. The Starlight Seeker, Admiral Baker demanded, What is their status? No response, the communications officer replied after several attempts. All systems appear offline. For 3 agonizing hours, the command center waited. The combined fleet secured the disabled Krell vessels while search teams located and contained the confused ground forces. Without their central command, the Krell soldiers had reverted to primitive behaviors lacking coordination. Finally, a faint signal came through. From the Starlight Seeker Lyra's voice, weak but triumphant command. This is High Commander Lyra. The mission was successful, but with unexpected results. Request immediate medical evacuation for all hybrids and prepare the genetic research facility. When the Starlight Seeker docked at the orbital station, Michelle was the first on board. What she found defied explanation. Claire and the other hybrids lay unconscious, their bodies undergoing rapid transformation. Their skin had deepened to a rich purple, their fingers elongating. Their neural patterns showed activity never before recorded in either human or Zindari. What happened? Michelle asked Lyra, who looked shaken for the first time since they had met. 5 years after the Krell War, Earth had become the center of a new interstellar alliance. The transformation of Claire Davis and the 12 other hybrids had sparked revolutionary changes throughout human and Zindari societies. What had begun as a military necessity had evolved into something far more profound, a new evolutionary path that combined the best aspects of multiple species. Laura Bennett stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, Unity watching shuttles arrive from across the solar system and beyond. As the human representative to the Galactic Council, she had witnessed the rapid expansion of human influence throughout nearby star systems. Ambassador Vela of the Zindari approached her, silver eyes reflecting the Earth below. "They have arrived," she said simply. Laura nodded, straightening her diplomatic uniform. The newly transformed hybrids, now called themselves the Nexus, had established their own colony on Titan. Saturn's largest moon, there they had built a city unlike anything seen before, a place where technology and biology merged seamlessly. Claire, as their representative, had requested this meeting with both human and Zindari leadership. The council chamber was designed to accommodate all 3 species, with areas for humans, standard seating for the taller Zindari, and specialized neural interface zones for the Nexus. When Claire entered the room, everyone fell silent. In 5 years, her transformation had continued. Her skin now shimmered, with subtle patterns that shifted with her emotions. Her eyes were pools of liquid silver that seemed to see beyond physical reality. Though her form remained humanoid, there was nothing human about her presence. A sense of expanded consciousness that filled the room. "Greetings, representatives," she said, her voice carrying harmonic undertones that triggered emotional responses in all who heard it. "I bring news from beyond our solar system." Laura leaned forward. "What news, Claire?" "The Nexus has established contact with 17 previously unknown sentient species," Claire explained. "Most exist beyond what your sensors can detect, operating on different dimensional frequencies than conventional matter. Some have observed Earth for centuries, unable to communicate until now." High Matriarch Celine, who had remained the Zindari leader throughout the changes of recent years, looked troubled. "These beings, they are peaceful." Claire smiled, a gesture that still held traces of her human origin. "They are curious. Some are ancient beyond our comprehension. Others, young and developing, all seek understanding rather than conquest. The galaxy is far more populated than either humans or Zindari realized. The barrier was never distance but perception." Laura processed this information carefully. "What does this mean for the Alliance for Earth?" "It means expansion," Claire replied, "but not as you might imagine. Not territorial expansion, but consciousness expansion. The Nexus has been developing technology that can temporarily allow humans and Zindari to perceive these other dimensions, these other forms of life. A bridge between ways of being. She activated a holographic display showing a device that appeared both technological and organic in nature. This interface can safely extend human and Zindari perception beyond current limitations, allowing direct communication with these other intelligences." Ambassador Vela studied the device. "With what purpose?" "Understanding," Claire said. "Simply, humanity brought adaptability to the stars." The Zindari brought ancient wisdom. The Krell, despite their aggression, contributed collective consciousness. These combined traits allow us to serve as intermediaries between forms of life that have existed in isolation for millions of years. The implications were staggering. Laura thought humanity's first steps into the galaxy had led not just to new territories, but to entirely new planes of existence. If these species have always been here, why reveal themselves now? Laura asked. Claire's expression became more serious. Because something approaches something that exists simultaneously across all planes of reality. The beings you call the Harvesters. Laura exchanged glances with Celine. The Harvesters were a theoretical threat mentioned in ancient Zindari text entities that supposedly appeared every 50,000 years to collect evolved consciousness throughout the galaxy. Most modern Zindari considered them mythological. They are quite real. Claire confirmed, answering Laura's unspoken thought. The dimensional beings have detected their approach. Their patterns match what your legends describe. The Harvesters consume evolved consciousness, leaving planets barren of sentient life. They have done this in cycles beyond counting high. Matriarch Celine stood her usual composure shaken. If the Harvesters are real, then according to our records they are due to appear within the next 20 Earth years. Claire finished. Our calculations suggest 17. Laura tried to comprehend the idea scale of this threat. How does one fight beings that exist across dimensions? Not fight, Claire corrected. Transcend. The Harvesters collect consciousness that has reached certain evolutionary thresholds but cannot progress further. They are not malevolent, merely functional. Like gardeners pruning plants that have stopped growing, so we need to evolve beyond their threshold, Laura said slowly, beginning to understand. Precisely, Ambassador Vela interjected. The Zindari reached our evolutionary plateau millennia ago. It is why we sought human adaptability. Our scientists theorized that genetic exchange could restart our development, but we never imagined it would lead to the nexus to an entirely new evolutionary branch. Claire nodded. The nexus represents one path forward, but not the only one. Our transformation is not suitable for all. The interface device allows temporary perception expansion, but we have been developing alternatives. A technological path for humans, a biological path for Zindari, and combined approaches for those who wish. For the next several hours, Claire outlined the Nexus proposal, a massive cooperative effort across all three species and their new dimensional allies to achieve what she called conscious transcendence. Before the Harvesters arrived, this would require sharing of all knowledge, all technology, and all biological advancements. 17 years is not much time, Laura noted after absorbing the presentation. It took humanity less than that to go from basic flight to landing on your moon, Claire reminded her. With combined resources and the knowledge of the dimensional beings, we can compress evolutionary timeframes in ways previously unimaginable. As the meeting concluded, Laura found herself alone with Claire on the observation deck. The Earth glowed blue and green below them, a fragile jewel that had somehow spawned a species, now central to galactic evolution. You know, Laura said quietly, watching her transformed friend when you volunteered for the hybrid program. Did you ever imagine it would lead to this? Claire laughed, a sound still remarkably human despite her altered form. I was hoping to help win a war, maybe advance physics. The universe had bigger plans, it seems. Do you ever miss being human? Laura asked the question she'd wondered for years. Claire was silent for a moment. I remember being human, she said finally. I still carry those memories, that perspective. It informs everything the Nexus has become. But asking if I miss it is like asking an adult if they miss being a child. The answer is both yes and no. I cherish what I was, but I could not return to that limited perspective any more than you could return to infancy. Laura nodded, understanding. What happens if we fail? If we cannot transcend before the Harvesters arrive? Claire turned her silver eyes toward the stars beyond. The cycle continues. Life begins again. Consciousness evolves once more. But she placed a hand on Laura's shoulder, her touch sending a slight tingle Through the human ambassador, I do not believe we will fail. The combination of human adaptability, Zindari wisdom, Krell, collective consciousness, and the dimensional being's perception creates possibilities never before available. The harvesters have never encountered such a combination. The mobilization began immediately across Earth and all human colonies. Zindari worlds joined the effort as information and technology flowed freely between formerly separate species. The Nexus served as coordinators, their expanded consciousness allowing them to process and integrate knowledge at unprecedented rates. Laura found herself traveling between worlds overseeing the human contribution to the Transcendence Project. On Mars, she watched as engineers incorporated Zindari energy concepts with human innovation, creating power sources that drew energy from multiple dimensions. On Europa, biological research centers developed new neural interfaces that allowed humans to process information at vastly accelerated rates. The changes were not without resistance. Conservative elements in both human and Zindari society feared the loss of their fundamental nature, their unique identity. But as the first successful transcendence technologies demonstrated their potential, resistance gradually faded. 5 years into the project, Laura received an invitation to the Nexus colony on Titan. She had visited several times before, but something was different about this request. When her shuttle landed, she found Claire waiting, her form now so transformed that only her eyes retained any connection to her human origin. Claire led her through the living city, where architecture responded to thought and energy flowed visibly through transparent conduits. "We have achieved a breakthrough," she explained as they walked. "The first complete transcendence chamber is operational." The day of the harvester's arrival dawned without fanfare. The morning sky over Earth looked the same as it had for millennia, blue and clear with scattered clouds. No massive ships appeared, no energy weapons fired. The only indication that something had changed was the subtle shift in the background radiation of the universe, a change detectable only by the advanced sensors developed over the past 17 years. Sharon Walsh stood on the roof of the Transcendence Center in New Beijing watching the sunrise. She had been the director of the global project for the past decade, overseeing the preparation of humanity for this exact moment. Unlike Laura Bennett and many others, Sharon had chosen to remain fully human without undergoing the transcendence process. Someone needed to manage the physical infrastructure, she had reasoned, while others explored higher dimensions. Her communication device chimed softly. It was Laura, her image appearing as a holographic projection, though she still maintained a human form for communication purposes. Her eyes now held the same silver quality as Claire and the other Nexus. "They are here," Laura said simply. Sharon nodded. "They were tracking the dimensional shift, I know." "Are the chambers ready? All transcendence chambers are operational," Laura confirmed. 80% of Earth population has undergone at least preliminary consciousness expansion. The remainder will need to decide quickly, Sharon finished. The harvesters would not wait. They never had in their countless cycles of collection. A second holographic image appeared beside Laura. This one of Claire Davis, though her appearance had evolved so far beyond her original human form that only her name remained the same. The Nexus had continued to transform, becoming beings of pure energy and information that only maintained humanoid appearances when communicating with unascended humans. The dimensional beings have confirmed harvester presence in all 7 primary reality planes. Claire said, her voice carrying harmonics that triggered emotional responses even through the holographic medium. They are proceeding exactly as the historical records indicated. Systematic collection beginning at the galactic rim and moving inward. How long? Sharon asked. Approximately 72 Earth hours until they reach our solar system. Claire replied. The dimensional beings are already implementing their transcendence protocols. Zindari worlds report 95% ascension rates. Sharon turned to look at the transcendence center below, where thousands of humans lined up for their scheduled procedures. The building was one of hundreds constructed around the world, each capable of processing tens of thousands of people daily. For 17 years, humanity had prepared for this moment, developing the technology and biological enhancements necessary to transcend beyond the Harvester's reach. Yet despite all evidence and preparation, there were still those who refused to believe the Harvester denial movement had grown, increasingly vocal in recent years, claiming the whole Transcendence program was an alien plot to control humanity. Sharon could see their protesters gathered beyond the center's security perimeter, waving signs and chanting. Laura followed her gaze. "The denial is understandable," she said softly. "Transcendence requires surrendering the known for the unknown. It requires faith. Not just faith," Sharon corrected. "Courage. The courage to evolve beyond what we understand ourselves to be." She turned back to her friends. "Are you certain the Transcended will be safe from the Harvesters?" Claire nodded. "The Harvesters collect evolved consciousness that remains bound to physical limitations. Transcended consciousness exists beyond those limitations, operating in dimensions the Harvesters cannot access. We will be as invisible to them as the dimensional beings were to unenhanced humans." Sharon checked the global status report on her tablet. Transcendence chambers worldwide were operating at maximum capacity, processing nearly 15 million humans per day. But with the Harvesters only 72 hours away, it would be impossible to transcend everyone. The math was simple and brutal. "We need to prioritize remaining slots," she said, her administrator mind calculating possibilities. Children, families in remote areas, those without access to preliminary consciousness. Expansion treatments. Laura shook her head. "The Harvesters do not discriminate by age or location. They collect all consciousness that has reached their threshold. But surely children," Sharon began, "have not yet developed the neural complexity the Harvesters seek." Claire interrupted. "Some will be passed over naturally. But conscious adults who have not transcended, the Harvesters will take them." The stark reality settled over Sharon like a weight. Humanity had known this day was coming for 17 years, had prepared, built, planned, evolved, yet still millions would be left behind. Unable or unwilling to transcend, they would be harvested, their consciousness collected like ripe fruit from a garden. The next 70 hours passed in a blur of activity. Sharon barely slept, coordinating the final push to transcend as many willing humans as possible. The Nexus representatives worked tirelessly. Alongside her, their expanded consciousness allowing them to process information and coordinate efforts at superhuman speeds. Reports came in from around the solar system. Zindari worlds had achieved nearly complete transcendence, their ancient civilization, finally breaking through the evolutionary plateau that had constrained them for millennia. The Krell, once enemies, now allies, had developed their own form of collective transcendence, their hive mind expanding beyond physical reality. The first direct evidence of the Harvesters appeared 50 hours after the initial detection. Orbital observatories recorded distortions in spacetime, advancing through the outer solar system. Unlike conventional ships or beings, these distortions existed partially, outside normal reality, visible only as ripples in the background radiation. Sharon watched the feeds from the command center as the phenomena approached. They defied easy description, neither fully material nor entirely energy. The scientists who had remained untranscended struggled to explain what they were seeing, using analogies like shadows of higher dimensional objects projected into our reality at the 68-hour mark. Sharon received word that the last transcendence chamber slots had been filled. Approximately 85% of Earth's population had either transcended or was in the process. Every available chamber was operating at full capacity. The remaining 15%, nearly 1 billion people, would face the Harvesters unprotected. Laura appeared beside her. No longer using holographic projection, she had physically returned to the command center. Her human form seemed somehow less substantial now, as if she existed primarily in other dimensions and merely projected herself into physical reality. "It's time, Sharon," she said gently. "Your slot has been reserved since the beginning." Sharon shook her head. "I need to remain coordinate." The aftermath. Laura placed a hand on her shoulder, her touch sending tingles of energy through Sharon's body. "There will be no aftermath. Not as you imagine it. The Earth will remain, but those untranscended will be gone. Their consciousness collected, their bodies empty. The harvesters have done this countless times across countless worlds, and if I transcend? Sharon asked. What difference does one more make? Every consciousness matters, Laura replied. Each brings unique perspective to the transcended state. Your organizational skills, your dedication, your particular human viewpoint, these are valuable beyond measure. Sharon looked at the monitoring screens showing the harvester distortions now passing Mars orbit, advancing inexorably toward Earth. What is it like? She asked. Finally. The transcended state. Laura smiled, a gesture that still held echoes of her human past. Imagine being able to see all wavelengths of light simultaneously. Imagine understanding mathematics without calculation, experiencing music as visible patterns, feeling the emotions of others as your own. Imagine existing in multiple moments across multiple dimensions while still retaining your unique identity. It sounds overwhelming. Sharon admitted. It was at first, Laura acknowledged. But consciousness adapts. That is what consciousness does. It expands to fill its container. When the container is infinite, the expansion becomes. The words failed her, as if human language simply lacked the concepts necessary to explain. Sharon made her decision. 2 hours before the harvesters were projected to reach Earth, she entered one of the reserved transcendence chambers. She lay back on the conforming surface as neural interfaces connected to her temples, spine, and major nerve clusters. The process had been refined over years, no longer requiring the extensive preparation of earlier versions. As the chamber activated, Sharon felt her awareness begin to expand. It was like waking from a dream she hadn't known she was having. The boundaries between herself and the world, between thought and reality, between past and future, all began to dissolve, not into chaos but into a higher order of organization. She perceived Laura and Claire waiting for her not as physical beings, but as intricate patterns of consciousness, unique and beautiful. She could see the connections between all living things, the web of information and energy that constituted reality. And she could see the harvesters approaching. From her transcended perspective, they appeared not as monsters, but as functions, simple cosmic gardeners, pruning consciousness that had reached its limits. They moved through physical reality, collecting the untranscended like farmers harvesting ripe grain. Neither malevolent nor benevolent, they simply were fulfilling their role in the cosmic cycle.